up, get out right out of your bed, that's your quicksand. Getting rid anxiety and head, you can fix it. Rid of stigmas, all of them you said, we ain't listening. Just remember, try to do your best, you can win this. Maurice Benard, State of Mind.
Hey, State of Mind, what's happening? If you like what you see, hit this button and, we can get more subscriptions. We're doing great, of course, but it's always nice to have more, and I can bring you incredible guests like I have today. So I was I was doing a scene at General Hospital, and Lydia Look, who plays Selena Wu, says to me, hey, Maurice, do you know Pete Antico or Antico? I said, no, I kind of heard that name. She goes, he's a legend, man. He's a legend, man. And I said, cool. She goes, yeah, he's a stunt legend. He's an actor, producer, all kinds of stuff. But he's been around for a long time. He's Robert De Niro's body double. Been working with, this. And I said, oh, cool. He should do State of Mind. And I said, set it up. And she said, okay, let me ask him. So she, a week later, she says, he said he wants to do the show. I said, damn. Oh, no. She said he has Tourette's. And I said, wow, that's phenomenal. And here he is. Pete Antico. Say the last name. Antico, yes. Pete Antico is a director, writer, producer, actor, but he's a legend in the stunt world. He really, I've heard that from everybody, and I don't want to get you embarrassed, but you are a legend.
I think Terry Leonard or Gary McClarty.
Oh, there's other people?
I think those people are legends. I'm just a humble servant and a student of the game, and I was very fortunate to be accepted, especially moving having all these, tics I had when I first started when I was 19 or 20. It was like being accepted on a team of professional misfits and athletes. And I really, I broke in. I didn't know anybody in Hollywood, but, I was a really good athlete. I was a pole vaulter at California Lutheran University and a baseball player at Moore Park, and I boxed and I kickboxed, and I did a lot of sports because sports helped me move through the difficult physical tics of that I was dealing with Tourette's and obsessive compulsive disorder, which was really, really, debilitating for a long, long time. So, beating a heavy bag or sparring or pole vaulting
calms it down.
Yeah, it was like it gave me a physical outlet, so I would spend my body's energy. Then I wouldn't move as much, and the tics wouldn't be so severe, which is really a godsend, because I was like a human guinea pig through trial and error of athletics and spending a lot of energy with my physicality. Then learning, when I was like 13 years old, because if you don't eat sugar, because every time I ate a candy bar, I would be off.
Really? Yeah.
I'd go, and so I remember I was 13 and I used to go to liquor stores, from school and get an RC cola and a bag of pork rinds. that was my go-to, either Lay's potato chips or pork rinds and an RC cola. And then I don't know, this came to me. So what if you just cut out all the sugar? So I never, from 13 years old on, I never drank any soda. And
wow.
and I was going, wow, this is a little bit of relief, like 20% on the severity and the intensity of these tics and movements. So I said, let me test this theory out. So I'd get like a Clark bar or something and I'd eat it. And 2 minutes later, I was like, oh, I just drank a bunch of water. And this is how I started. And my father, who smoked 2 packs a day and, drank, all kinds of soda, At 39 years old, he quit cold turkey. He stopped smoking. He went to Vince's Gym, which was a famous gym in Studio City. And then he ended up taking me there when I was 16. But he worked out there for 3.5 years, cold turkey, started learning about supplements and vitamins. And he had 11-inch arms and a 36-inch waist. He came out in 3.5 years with 15.5-inch arms and a 33-inch waist. And, you know, and he lived till he was 85. And he probably would have passed by the time he was 50 with all the pollutants that you didn't know. Their generation, you know, you get television commercials and, you know, people get programmed. I mean, how do I remember like, you know, Easy Beefy Prime or all these quotes are shake and bake and I help. I mean, when you listen to your Lucky Charms or Magically Delicious or, you know, Tony the Tiger Sugar Frosted Flakes, they're great.
Yes.
Because they're programmed into you and they're toxic and they shouldn't be allowed to be sold to children, certainly, because sugar causes pike and sugar is the biggest destroyer of your cells and certainly causes massive amounts of inflammation and issues. So my father was a student of nutrition and supplementation. And then I got into biochemical or medicine from a molecular structure. That's why guys that like Gary Brecka or Tanner Richter from Westlake, they speak about, you know, taking, you know, hormone test and a glycemic test for your blood sugar and then a methylatum test to see, you know, if your genes are actually working properly. And if not, you have to, you know, give them supplementation. But really, the number one thing is you can't be eating, you know, massive amounts of carbs because no matter how healthy the carbs were, because I was a vegetarian, you know, for almost 9 years or a pescatarian. And then I stopped because I started going to these doctors and said, well, no, you know, you're eating a massive amount of carbs causing a lot of sugar in your body. So you're getting insulin spikes and sugar spikes in your body. And like 2 weeks ago, I heard Dana White talk about, you know, this guy, Gary Brecka, who was speaking, who's a biologist.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I had been doing that because I had a nutritionist or a naturopath named Tanner Richter in Westlake. And she was talking about peptides. Every peptide that Brecka talked about, I was taking. And, you know, and that this is from Dr. Axie Joy Kong, gave me the peptides, who's one of the, you know, top regenerative doctors which deals with stem cells and I should say prenatal stem cells or umbilical stem cells that don't have markers on them. So your body adapts to those stem cells. There's no other markers. You're not getting anybody else's, you know, genetic signatures into your body. I mean, and there's a difference of how it works and, you know, exosomes as well. So I've been, you know, learning about this and continuing to learn because my father put me on that path. If he didn't, you know, I don't know, you know, what would have happened, but having Tourette's was very difficult because it was, you know, difficult to focus.
You know, it's funny you're telling me this because I just went through another bad anxiety and I'm thinking maybe it's the food I'm eating, man. Maybe I should, you know, I don't eat much sugar, but I do eat a lot of pasta and a lot of rice.
Yeah, so rice has a very high glycemic index. I would switch that to quinoa. Look, I'm Italian. I mean, I love pasta. My mother made it homemade. And if I do it, I've been doing it with like edamame noodles. I've been doing it, and then look, edamame is vegetables or zucchini noodles. And, you know, look, once a month, you know, I can throw up some, you know, some regular pasta. But if you're just using, you know, broccoli or garlic, olive oil, broccolini, rapini, if you're throwing, you know, vegetables in, you're basically having there's very little carbs in that meal because you're basically eating vegetables. And look, every once in a while, you know, eating carbs, especially if you're working out, I know you box. So, you know, every once in a while you got to do that, you know, to give yourself energy. Because, I mean, if you're a marathon runner, of course you're going to have to eat you have to carb up a little bit, but on a daily basis. If you're eating, you know, rice and pasta and pancakes, no matter if they're whole grain buckwheat, it's still carbs.
Yes.
It's still carbs. And I cut out 90% of the carbs in my diet.
90?
Yep. And I have I feel, that with, I did stem cell therapy. I did do peptides, and I have to say the peptides just make your natural functions of your body. It stimulates your own growth hormone or your own testosterone. It doesn't replace it. It's probably, I think, one of the best things that I've ever seen. I mean, and when I go to the gym, I cannot believe, the strength that I get.
Really?
I mean, I haven't done squats since I was really heavy squats since I was an
Right.
athlete. And I got like 6 reps at 205. I used to work out with that in college, but
So peptides, you just go to I've seen it. I've seen
yeah,
and it's like a powder.
no,
No.
it's you inject it in your stomach or it's sublingual.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I should do that.
Well, I have to say, in regards to mental health, you really are, what you eat. There's 2 things: exercise
Yes.
and diet. And people don't realize you really have to be careful of what you eat. If you go to a supermarket, most of the people, you look at checkout, orange soda or Sprite and Ho-Hos and potato chips,
Right.
or food that's in a box. And a whole food diet, it is much better. I mean, chicken, fish, and vegetables, and not vegetables that you see that are shrink wrapped in plastic,
Okay.
because you don't want the plastic to leach, into the
Okay.
vegetables, because you just go pick
Yeah.
out the vegetables that are good, and just make sure you clean them off, before you eat them. But if you're dealing, with like, fresh wild caught
Yeah.
salmon, not farm raised, you don't want to ever eat farm raised anything.
Oh,
Salmon,
okay.
yeah. I think if you're eating beef, it should be grass fed, organic, beef or chicken, and you have to know the source of where it comes from. I learned to be
Dang.
really specific about how I eat, because it certainly affects my mental clarity, and the symptoms I had from Tourette's, which is a godsend. To all the kids out there, I spoke with Dr. Oliver Sacks at the World's Fair building in New York like 25 years ago, because I did an interview on Entertainment Tonight, and I was just I did a movie called 29th Street with Danny Aiello, where I played his son-in-law, and I did The Highlander 2 with Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert playing this alien being, and all these parts, and and they said, well, Pete's got one interesting thing. He's had a neurological disorder since a kid called Tourette syndrome. All of a sudden, that was on the news. I got all these phone calls. Pete, from the Tourette Syndrome Association. What chapter are you with? I said, first of all, what is a Tourette Syndrome Association and what is a chapter? I don't know what you're talking about. They go, why did you do this interview? What do you mean, why did I do the interview? I did the interview. Aren't you afraid your career would be affected? I said, no, I wanted to do it to help children, because not to have to go through the masking that I did, because it'd be like, ooh, and I do make a move, and and I go, what? Oh, it's good, So how you doing? It's like, say, Pussy, how you doing? And whatever you said, you could say, you just mask it with a word or a movement. And a lot of agents, when I started, thought I was on cocaine. I was a drug addict.
Right.
I said, no. But when I did that interview, it was like, coming out of the Tourette closet saying, no, I have a neurological disorder. And I never have gotten a job because I've had Tourette syndrome. In fact, every actor that I know, every major star, they would always call me, hey, Pete, I got this part I'm supposed to audition for, or I'm doing that he has Tourette's. Can you help me understand it?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, so I worked with Thomas Jane. He was brilliant in the last Terminator film. He played a mercenary soldier with Tourette's, and I worked with Nick Cage on Matchstick Man. And then Nick was originally going to produce a film that I wrote, called A War Within, because I wrote a film about a war within, called A War Within, about my life story as a kid with Tourette's and jumping up to be a stuntman and an actor, how it's kind of like My Left Foot Meets A Beautiful Mind, with action in it. And then, I develop a new company. I'm a bit of a tech file, and we're going to do something called token. We're going to tokenize. It's going to be the first film that's ever been tokenized, and you could make a difference just putting one foot in front of the other. And I believe that, the biggest I think plague in the world with human beings is self-esteem. If people really understand their divinity, it's not a function of money, because there really is no wealth in the material, only the spiritual. So if you're connected with your brother and sister and saying, hey, if Maurice Benard's just made $100 million, I'm going to go clap. I'm going to go, hey man, look what he did.
Yeah.
Or Elon Musk, man, look at him. Love it. Awesome. Celebrate. When you celebrate, because as within, so without, the frequency you put out shall be returned unto you. When you're truly happy for them, instead of the old human nature being jealous, saying,
but isn't that's ego also? Is ego involved there?
Sure, but if you want the best for other people,
it's the greatest. But
they want the best. That energy comes back to you.
Yes, but because of sometimes the way we're brought up, or whatever it is, it's hard for. I mean, I've had to work on that side of myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's look at coming from my experience as a kid, really, because they told me my whole life, they told me I couldn't. And I said, is this a R-rated show?
You can swear on this.
I basically said, screw you.
Yeah. And
I'm going to do it anyway. And I did it many times, a lot of times just because they said I couldn't.
Yeah.
And how is it? I mean, think about it. An oxymoron, a stuntman with Tourette syndrome. How does that work? I mean, how does that work?
That's
but I had incredible focus, because people that have the disorder, when you focus, it's like, hyper focus, like a laser beam. So when I hit a baseball, I'd be like, I'd walk up to the plate. As soon as the pitcher wound up, I'd be like, I wouldn't.
That's cool.
I would dial in. Same thing. If I was playing second base, I'd move around. Once the pitcher wound up,
bam.
I was like a radar.
Now, are you born with? How's that work? I mean, as a 1-year-old, do you have Tourette's?
Well, I don't believe there was any symptomology until I was close to age 7.
Oh,
and I know there's now more advanced studies on it, because I was told, I got diagnosed at the City of Hope Medical Center in Duarte, California. I was so happy because, my dad always used to say that I could beat it with my mind. And then I go to finally, my cousin, who's a chiropractor in New York, sends my parents a letter or an article that said there was this guy named Gilles de Tourette, 1794, had discovered this syndrome. All the symptoms describe what I had. So we went to the City of Hope. I was 14 years old. And we walked in the room, talked to the doctor by myself. And he pulls my parents back in the room. He said, well, there's good news and bad news. I asked, so what's the good news? They go, good news. Well, Pete has something called Tourette syndrome. And when he said that, I got to look at my dad. I told you I have something. And I was going, yeah, I got something. Now I can fix it. and then he goes, well, the bad news, there's no cure. And I just at that moment, I just hit me like a truck.
But before that, you didn't know?
No, they thought the church wanted to give me an exorcism.
No.
They're like, these demons in him. Yeah. But nobody knew what it was. They had no.
But do you think it's advanced now that if you were a young boy, people would know?
Now.
Right. It's like bipolar back then.
Yes.
What the? Yeah.
Well, back when they could accuse you of being schizophrenic.
Exactly. Right.
And my studies with that are methylcobalamin, vitamin B12, like Tourette's B12, and you ought to take a test to see if your genes are methylating properly as well. Hormone. There's some things I believe that will help that. But in regard to getting diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, I mean, that was like a sledgehammer hit me on the in the head and the heart. I was like, oh, free, I got to live with this. Oh,
But
and,
in school, were kids bullying you? Or?
yeah, I mean, I had a lot of that until 11 years old. I beat the hell out of some kid when I was like, I was like 11 or 12. I was so angry because I used to see kids make fun of me all the time, and I used to look at them, and I used to it used to it was very difficult on my heart. And then, after years and years from being like from 5 to like 11, finally someone did it. And I just went off and I said, if you ever do that to me again, this will happen to you. No one ever bothered me again.
That's what happens, yeah.
And it's sad to say that, but it's like a classic a bully, whether it be verbally or physically. They pick on people who are easy prey. When you in academia, you can pick on someone, well, he doesn't have the education in one area. If you educate yourself in history, you're going to appear like one intelligent human being. However, that doesn't mean you know how to run complex, mathematical equations, or that you have a command of constructing a body of work using proper English. It doesn't mean that you have a large vocabulary. It doesn't mean you can solve problems. The difference is, but the study of science, and I believe law, and it says this in many scriptures, and if you study ancient civilizations, whether it be Sumerians, Lumerians, Babylonians, Atlanteans, and you look at Egyptology, you're going to find the sciences are very, very, very prevalent. Because when you get spoken to, when someone's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, I don't care in what area, when you're educated and you know law or you know science, you could protect yourself. Certainly in the last 4 years with this pandemic going on, if you were very educated, you could have kept yourself out of a lot of strife if you're really educated, because you understand how the law works. So the more you educate yourself, and I always encourage, in people educating themselves in science and law, because it's a benefit. First of all, anytime people see a letter, oh my God, they're charging me with this, or this statute's civil, and
you're right.
They go, people are like a deer in the headlights. But if you understand the game and how it works in principle,
you're right.
You're going to put checks and balances on that attorney that you hire.
Yeah,
and then you're going to hire much better attorneys, and then you're going to learn from them. But if something isn't right in your gut, you're still going to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Now, there are cases when hey, here's a family member or a loved one or a brother or a sister that has integrity, that has always been straight up with you, that is extremely educated, and you ask them questions. There's few and far between where you can rely on a human being like that. And when you can, it's a blessing. But it's always come down to, God, I wish it would be so easy. Like you got some of these performers, big name actors have been, had ridden with drugs and alcohol their career. And every time they go down, everybody goes, oh, I feel so sorry. I'm so happy for him. Right. Wait a minute. You're not happy for the guy in rehab that you don't know.
Exactly.
But you're only happy for the person because, what's the reason, that you're happy for them? It's interesting because, either you rise to the occasion and come through adversity, which many people have, and the bottom line is, you treat yourself, how you treat yourself is how you treat other people.
Yeah.
That's why I was talking about self-esteem much earlier. If you know who you are and you have self-awareness, it doesn't matter what anybody says about you, because you know who you are.
I know.
But when you don't know who you are, if someone says something and you react, because there's something about accountability where I'm accountable for my actions and my reactions.
Right.
Once you get that and you actually state that, I'm accountable for my actions and my reactions. Mm-hmm. Because how many times in our lives did we say, well, I didn't do that because he pissed me off. She pissed me off. Right. So I acted this way because they did that. So basically saying your actions are governed by what someone else does or says. Who's the puppet?
Yeah.
Who's the slave?
Right.
And that's imprisonment. That's what slavery is. I mean, look at politics, the current state of affairs. Somebody says something on the right, someone says something on the left. All of a sudden, they get triggered. they get triggered.
Yeah, yeah.
And people are spending their whole day. Did you see what they said? Did
Yeah,
you see what
exactly.
they said?
Yeah, yes.
Instead of spending time with your kids, instead of meditation, being creative, being productive, keeping your spirit in your higher self, because it really appears like half the world is going into an unconscious state and the other half of the world is rising in consciousness phenomenally well. And there's a lot of angels in this world that are standing for truth and, and integrity and principles and morals and values and understanding that we're all connected. The practice of diligence is very, very important. Diligent meaning that if you want to study something or you want to get more educated because something frustrates you, you either can say procrastinate or you can set 10 minutes a day and say, I'm just going to study this for 10 minutes a day. And when you give yourself an easy goal to start with, just to practice discipline, because discipline is everything. Like I'm going to tell you, a month ago, I started doing something. I heard, well, it's much better for your immune system if you take a shower and when you're done, turn it on the ice.
Cold.
And so for the month, and I know the cold plunges that the people doing are also phenomenal. So for the last month, I've been just every shower I take, I take a steam, I take a shower, then ice cold water, and it's like it's funny how your mind, when you condition your mind,
make the uncomfortable comfortable.
Yeah, it makes But tell me what progress was made in comfort. What progress in society was made drinking a Mai Tai on a beach somewhere?
Well, how about relaxation?
Yeah. Well, look, all progress has come through uncertainty and uncomfortability.
No,
when you're uncomfortable, you have to do things. If you have a time frame you have to do something in, it's like you're studying for college, you're cramming. I got to get this, and you study, and you get it done. You go, Now, people often say, I have so much pressure. I'm pressuring, or you're pressuring me. The school's pressuring you. No, it isn't. No one puts a gun to your head and goes,
no,
no. When you know you have to study in a certain amount of time, you put pressure on yourself. How about if you could do the same thing with the same intensity, being peaceful? Now that's a feat.
Okay.
To do it. It's like, I have to do this in a certain amount of time, and all right, the schedule, and you focus and you don't dilly-dally. And when you're in college, they say you got to get the grade, or you're in high school, you got to get the grade, or else I won't be able to go to the school I want to go to.
Right.
And then that's in there. I have to tell you, even being in college, you get educated. The best education I got was when I got out of school.
All right, let's talk about AI and a little bit of the movies, and then we'll be good. I had a guy on here, and he's a tech guy. He's he had a $250 million deal or whatever. And he said AI has gotten to the point where if your daughter was kidnapped, somebody could call for a ransom, right?
Yep.
And they would say, I need this amount of money. And you would say, I need to see my daughter. And you would see your daughter, and it's AI. That's how crazy it is. And you would pay up, obviously, if it's your daughter.
Yeah.
So what's your deal with AI?
So there is a gentleman named Bryce Case Jr. who hacked into NASA. He was on Sean Ryan's podcast, a former Navy SEAL, brilliant.
Yeah.
That guy is a beautiful human being, Sean Ryan. But so he comes on the show, and what you can do is they can spoof or run a deep fake, which means they can copy you just from, like, they can take you off a general hospital.
Right.
They can put you on FaceTime on a cell phone, and your voice, they could call your wife and say, there's an emergency, send me 10 grand.
Right.
Or they can say, hey, Maurice, we're going to have my friend so-and-so pick up our girl at school today. They can say that too. And the bottom line is, they can spoof, anything. Generative artificial intelligence has been developed, heavily in the last 3 years. Though they had machine learning and artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. The key things are like in 2001: A Space Odyssey, that film by Stanley Kubrick. Can it become sentient? Can it think for itself? Or The Rise of the Machines or
Or
Terminator?
emotion.
Yeah, talking about companies like Skynet. If you have a robotic machine with artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is artificial, but it's programmed by humans. That's why a lot of the artificial intelligence, when you ask ChatGPT questions and you ask them about a doctor, it'll give you a depiction of a certain race of person because they get programmed biasly. And there's a lot of bias in artificial intelligence. But how do you confirm the source? That's the key. You have to be able to confirm the source. Where does it come from? But if artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence, when it progresses, and I believe they have it now, where it becomes sentient, where it can think for itself, there has to be checks and balances, or how would that not be dangerous to the human race? Because, and why is a film like Terminator 1, the first one, so prevalent? Because it basically explains exactly that. And, the things that, people have to understand is that human beings need to come together, and understand that we're really connected, and you want to do what's best, for humanity, which means everybody should have a roof over their head. Everybody, should be fed. There should be order. Yeah, because you can't have any order in a system that deals with chaos. So, and the way you're doing that, the country is more divisive than at any time I can remember in my life.
Yeah, right.
And it's certainly not run by truth. One side believes they're correct, the other side believes they're correct, and then there's the truth.
Yeah,
right. And then you have to, truth and time, no matter how far apart, will always come together. And I believe that if you disagree with someone's view, you shouldn't be censored. No, you should be able. Right. You should have a conversation and speak civilly. That's what Bobby Kennedy. That's what Robert F. Kennedy. I noticed about him that I saw them attack him in Congress, and he was completely civil. They took him out of context, blatantly tried to smear him, and he basically eloquently corrected them and made them look so foolish, because these people are supposed to represent us, and they're basically lying to a man with the education of Mr. Kennedy, because he has encyclopedic knowledge. I've always seen civil. He was a brilliantly successful environmental attorney, as well as against some of these drug companies who have never produced drugs before. And he was correct from the beginning of the pandemic. And I think he's the most civil, educated human being. And and since 52% of the country is now listed as independent, I think Robert F. Kennedy has a hell of a shot at getting into the White House.
Wow.
And I would support a civil human being with that much. And anybody would ever sit and listen to him, put him in a debate against any human being, any candidate, and sit back and get educated and watch what happens. Because most of the things that people say about Kennedy are smears. And when you sit and listen to him talk, you will find that you'll be singing a different tune. I watched him on, Joe Rogan and many other shows. And I think he is the most ethical and civil and intelligent human being. And I think our country should be represented with somebody with class and strength, like Mr. Kennedy. And then the part that pisses me off is he can do 23 pull-ups.
What happened to his throat? Or
I don't know. He had something early on, some kind of a side effect. I'm not quite sure, but let's talk about, man. When I looked at your resume, it was like my mouth opened. There was so many things you've done, but you've worked with everybody. How's Robert De Niro? How was work? I liked him. He's great. He's so focused. I mean, Bob is focused. I mean, I did the movie 15 Minutes with him and Showtime, and I doubled him in this fight tied to a chair, fighting a Russian.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was nominated for best fight sequence at the World Tourist Stunt Awards. And I was in the room, this little New York apartment, and we were doing this fight, and it was very difficult because, you know, we had to do this choreography, and he would sit there. I would watch him do the scene. He'd do the dialogue, and then I'd have to come in and do the fight. And he was sitting in a chair like I'm in right now.
Right.
He was just like watching me. I know he's watching me intently, and I'd have to get myself off there and flip this chair around, flip on the ground, do all these things. And, I remember one time I tried to get up because it was too tight and I couldn't get up. And I had to get up. And they looked at him because we cut and had to do it again. I just go like that. He goes, yeah, I know. But what I have to do is my job when I was as a stunt performer was to mimic and recreate his movements.
Damn.
I'm not going to, you know, look not like him.
Right.
I want to move. I want to move like him, only make him look better, you know, and you know, and he doesn't mess around. He's a very, very intense study. You know, as he did Killers of the Flower Moon. He was brilliant in that film.
Right.
You know, then he had to speak an Indian language. Him and Leo had to do it. And he was just brilliant. He had to speak Farsi in another movie, you know, a Russell movie. He had a David O. Russell movie. He is brilliantly focused at everything he does. And one thing he has is focus. And one thing he does almost as good or better than any actor I've ever seen is listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes he says nothing for minutes. And he's just listening intently. But it's fascinating to watch somebody who's listening because there's a difference. If you actually listen and respond, like we're talking right now, listening,
right.
something's going on in your head.
Yeah.
I can see, and something's going on in my head because I'm actually listening to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what actors really do at its base level, as you know, it's listening and responding.
That's it. Yeah.
Because we're never, if we go take 2, 3, 4, and 5, if we keep listening, we're not mimicking our performances.
No.
We're recreating them.
Yeah.
So then everything that happens in the moment is organic.
Yeah.
Right.
And it should always feel like the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And when I was doing, I did Midnight Run as well.
I love Midnight Run.
So there was 3 of us: Corey Eubanks, Spiro Rosatos, who's a huge second-year director, and actually just 4th, Mario Roberts. There's about 4 of us. We had 3 different units, and we're all busy. So doing that particular scene, I'm in the train car before he has to get thrown off the train. He has to throw Charles Grodin off the train. And so I gotta do that, and he's like handcuffed, and I'm thinking the acting coaches that I went to, you never disrespect the artist. The writer's words are sacred. You always must repeat every word verbatim. I watched De Niro and Grodin every take. You slime ball in a sea of pus. Boom, boom, boom. Take 2, completely different words. Take 3, completely different words. Right. And I'm going, what are these acting teachers talking about? This is bull. I laughed so hard, and that experience was good because it was just me, the stunt double for Charles Grodin, Dennis Scott, and Marty Brest, DP.
Yes.
And Bob and Charles, and I watched them do. It was a great treat. I just got to sit there and pay attention and watch them say different things. But Alan Rich, rest in peace, who was in Darkness at Noon on Broadway with Claude Rains, who played the DA in Serpico. And
yeah.
Alan was a big time character actor, and then he got blacklisted in the McCarthy era. But Alan, you know, was a very interesting, human being, and he was a really big time coach here. He basically says your job is to just tell the story. So what De Niro was doing, I asked him. He goes, "Look, you could say the fox jumped over the dog. That's the story. Go." So that's why the quick fox jumped over the dog. The quick fox jumped over the lazy flea-bitten dog. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy, flea-bitten, pockmarked dog. Okay. You just told the story. Didn't matter how you told it. You told it. Your job is the dog.
Right.
The fox jumped over the dog. So when you know the story, when you're listening and responding, if someone throws you a curveball, you're going to answer them.
Exactly.
So that's something, that I learned at a young age, and to put it into practice, it's not that hard. It just becomes again diligent. Like the pro that you are, the longevity of your brilliant career, to do the dialogue. I go to the soap opera people. What kind of training do they have? I mean, I have ultimate respect for that. And I know earlier on, like 30 years ago, they go, oh, soap opera actors.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Those soap opera actors that choose that do that and move out, they understand, how to listen and respond. They have years and years of practice of doing that, which is a feat in itself.
Yes, I always say that there is a lot of actors on soaps who aren't, let's say, very good, but the top, whatever it is, 10 to 20, they can do anything.
Oh yeah.
When you have to go in and do everything in 1-2 takes, and you have 30 pages of dialogue, I see movie actors coming in the General Hospital. And they come in and the scene's done. They're like, okay, so what's the next? I said, no, we're already gone, man. And their eyes get like this.
And they go, oh, hey, I don't want to do that.
What about Stallone? How was Stallone?
Stallone, when I first met him, late 30s. But, I mean, that was a real movie. I like you call it, Stars Are in the Sky. He was a leading, world-renowned, huge name actor, and used to have an entourage. Extremely intelligent, extremely physical and athletic, and a real artist. Which because of Rocky.
No, I get it.
They not only was he's made well over. I know he's made over $100 million deal in art. The man is extremely bright. I think he's a phenomenal director. I think he's very focused and he has a vision. And when you're the man or in the hot seat or a director or a visionary, because when he did that Saturday Night, I think Fever, the movie I mean, look, he is extremely good and a very good filmmaker. And I doubled him in a couple of films, and I did Tango and Cash with him. One of the doubles, there was a because
that's physical, man.
Yeah, I was only like at that time 168 pounds, but that movie I think he was only like 172, 174, and his double were all pretty vascular. More than me, but I had to do a lot of martial arts and I had a background in kickboxing, so and I was a really good facial double for him, so I did that, and there was like 120 moves in this fight. I said, he's not going to do this. He's going to cut 2/3 of his fights out. You'll see, this is a great fight. The choreographers were telling me, I said, watch, he comes in. I go over those 120 moves I'm rehearsing for a week. And he goes, we're going to go from here, this.
It cuts my
and I laugh. I mean, he knows how to sell a fight.
Yeah.
And, when I think about certain things, it's like everybody has their own personalities, but it's an honor to have the opportunity to work with someone like Bob De Niro, Sylvester Stallone, because I like to say, some of the brilliance of those, the lessons that you learn are invaluable. And I think about it sometimes. I doubled Al Pacino as well. I doubled Don.
Oh, Al, he's like my idol when I was a kid.
And I doubled Don Johnson in a movie called The Hot Spot that Dennis Hopper directed, and did this, huge fight. And Dennis Hopper was a legend. I mean, and he was, an interesting guy. And Don Johnson.
But was he kind of?
No.
Oh
Hopper,
no.
I mean, Hopper's an artist. I mean, he he is a very, very intellectual guy, and Don Johnson was a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a great time with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. That was just after he did Miami Vice. He goes, "Hey Pete, you want to see? You say stop traffic or something?" And we're in Texas, where I was just going to go into a burning building and pull somebody out, and he just stands by the side of the road and waves at people. The reactions were nuts. It's pretty funny, but he's always been. Johnson was extremely kind.
Yeah.
To me, I got along with him, extremely well.
Yeah. Denzel Washington, how did you work with him?
I have worked with him on a Tony Scott movie about, what am I blank? Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide, right?
And
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Yeah. And Denzel Washington, one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, well,
he's and as he has gotten older, and I've heard him speak publicly, he's really come out as a kind, ethical human being. And look, everybody at certain times, we all have egos and been assholes. Everybody. I've owned when I've been,
trust me.
when I have screwed up. Believe me, I am not perfect by any means. However, the things that we learn by are our mistakes and our failures. And all human beings choose to transcend. They transcend.
Yes.
If you think someone's the same as they were 30 years ago, I promise you Sly's not the same guy he was 30 years ago.
I get you, yeah.
I mean, he,
we keep looking in the mirror. You got to keep looking in the mirror.
Well, everything's a mirror, and sometimes the people in front of you, point that out.
Yeah.
But that's why I speak about, accountability.
This has been a very long state of mind, but a very interesting one. I love that Pete just had Tourette's and just did so much with his life. I think about what I have, right? Mental illness is what it is. But I can't imagine how difficult it must have been early, and then to do everything you did. Stunts. How does that work from this to stunts? But he did it. I'm so happy you came, and I appreciate it. And that's that.
The last thing I'd like to say is that I directed a movie called The Paradigm of Money, which is a finance documentary. Oliver Stone's son, Sean, produced it with me. It's now playing on Red Coral Universe. It's a new streaming platform that gives better residuals to actors all the way down the line. What they're doing is a new model that in the near future, actors will be, and writers for TV series and films, they'll be able to get better remuneration, much better than the AMPT contract that they're signing now. And I think this is the wave of the future. It's called Competition, Time to Be Disruptive, Red Coral, run by Larry Mestridge and Scott Valentine. Larry produced Sling Blade, and Scott used to play Justine Bateman's boyfriend on Family Ties with the Michael J. Fox.
What's the movie? What's it called?
The Paradigm of Money, and it's playing on Red Coral Universe.
The Paradigm of Money. Go check it out. And it's playing on
Red Coral Universe.
Red Coral Universe. All right. See you later. State of mind. Right on, brother.